Good evening, everybody, and welcome to We the People. Tonight, We the People have a special guest. Normally, we interview candidates or sitting representatives, and tonight we have the Green Party 2016 presidential nominee, Dr. Jill Stein. That's really cool because I know that many of you in the audience are Green Party members, and, you know, Laura and I voted for Jill because, well, our states kind of didn't do the right thing. But, and Jill is, in my opinion, as a progressive Democrat, I don't see any difference really between the Green Party and the Dem Party progressives. So we talk about that with Jill, but please welcome Dr. Jill Stein. Thank you for joining us, Jill.
It's really great to be with you, John. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I really want to thank Sadie for setting this up because she's the one who made this happen. So really glad you could take the time to be here. I know it's late where you are.
That's okay. Glad to do it.
Awesome. And before we start getting into the conversation about candidates, which is what we're probably going to talk about, hi, everybody. A lot of people just showed up. That's awesome. We have Laura Livengood here, and she's going to tell everybody what she does because this is an engagement broadcast. Tell them, Laura.
Yes, this is indeed an engagement broadcast, which means you get to engage with Jill during the interview. So if you have a burning question, please put it in chat and tag me or write the word question all in caps so that I can see it as it rolls through. And please, let's keep the conversation on target. And Sadie, I believe, is in the chat tonight, and she may be pressed upon to answer some policy questions if they come up so that we can get them all answered.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We do have only a short amount of time with Jill because you are headed to California tomorrow, right?
That's right. Tomorrow morning. Yes. For a bunch of events.
Yeah. So tell us about that. You're going to support a lot of Green Party candidates. There are so many Green Party candidates, everybody. Talk about what's going on.
Yes. So, you know, the myth is that the Green Party just runs a presidential candidate every 4 years and we go to sleep, you know, in between elections, but nothing could be farther from the truth. We really are a grassroots bottom-up party, and I hear my dog whining for some more treats.
That's all right.
So some treats.
I brought my dog in too, so when he does it, we'll be all right.
Okay, great. So yeah, we've got some really dynamite candidates from, you know, at all levels, but I'll be coming in to California tomorrow to going to Coachella, where we're running a green candidate for the first time. A young man who's running for city council, his first run. He's actually Latinx and has been a very active member of the community and has felt incredibly unrepresented, as many, you know, Latinas and Latinos are feeling very much, you know, thrown under the bus by previously the, you know, the deporter-in-chief, right, and now by, you know, the outrageous policies of Donald Trump. So, you know, it's been noted that the Latinx turnout in the midterms is very uncertain because, you know, for obvious historic reasons. It's, you know, that this is a millions and millions of people who've basically been getting screwed by both parties. And now that Donald Trump is really vilifying immigrants and is, you know, engaged in this horrendous persecution, really, of the refugees coming to this country in the caravan from Honduras, fleeing essentially violence and chaos instigated in part by centuries of colonialism and oppression, but most recently a military coup supported by Obama and by Hillary Clinton, you know. So that's who the refugees are fleeing. They are fleeing U.S. policy and the militarism. And when Trump talks about the aid going to, you know, to Central America, that's mostly military aid, you know, and policing. And, you know, it's just no wonder that people have been driven to migrate. So, you know, at any rate, it's just really exciting to see many Latinx candidates who are coming into the Green Party. So if anybody's in the vicinity of Coachella, come join us tomorrow at I think it's 6 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, let's see where you're going to be here. This is the 7 So it's 26,
7. Okay,
7 o'clock.
thank you.
And this is one of the guys that impressed me, because I didn't realize, like you said, everybody talks about the Green Party running for president, and that's about it. But this guy, Victor Alcantara, is city council. Right? That's a low level job, right?
Absolutely, and in fact, Greens already have something like 150 members of who are already holding local office.
Wow.
And it's everything from, commissioners of parks to development commissions to library boards and education boards and so on. So Greens are very active at all levels of our community. It's just that, we are systematically wiped out of the news cycle because, as you know, people are not happy campers inside of 2 corporate parties that have been throwing people under the bus. So the system keeps it quiet, fearing revolt, which is happening.
Right.
They keep it quiet. In the last presidential, it was something like 75% of Americans on the record in polls that were screaming for open debate so that they could find out who their other choices were, and people were systematically denied that knowledge. In America, we should have the right to vote, which is systematically denied to millions of people.
Sure.
But we also have a right to know who we can vote for. There are many pieces of democracy that are essential to make it work. So at any rate, Greens are a well-kept secret because we speak to what ails people, and all the things that appeal to people about Bernie Sanders' agenda, healthcare as a human right, through an improved Medicare for all system, strong public education, free public higher education. We've been on that for a long, long time. Greens have been very much ahead of the curve on equal marriage, on green energy, et cetera, but also on Medicare for all, on free public higher education. Oh, there you see my dog peeking in.
Hey. Oh, no, they can't see in this shot, but here, we'll just put there you go. There's the full dog photo bomb. Hi, sweetie.
Yeah. Yola.
What's the dog's name?
Yola.
Hey,
Yolanda.
Yolanda. There we go, everybody.
That's the dog. So if you hear a little jingling or whining,
or crunching,
it's understandable.
Or what?
Crunching.
Crunching. That's especially. Yeah, absolutely. So Victor Alcantara, this is really exciting, and he's a new Green who basically recruited himself. There are no Greens that we know of in Coachella, which is an agricultural community, a very poor community. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, that's
singing.
awesome. That's awesome.
Okay,
Listen, for independent media, this is ratings. So this is great.
Oh yeah, no, really, exactly.
Cute
right.
dog, Jill Stein. Doesn't get any better than this. Thank you, everybody. I see.
Spontaneous action. Nothing scripted here, folks.
Nope, nothing scripted here. There's going to be no hot mic moments. It's all right here. So
nothing naked truth here.
So,
yeah, definitely.
So the 26th, you've got this going on with Victor, and then you're just doing a whirlwind tour. You're leaving tomorrow. You're showing up, and you've got this on the 27th, and you've got Rodolfo Cortez Barragan, Laura Wells, Kenneth Mejia. We'd like to talk with all 3 if we get a chance. So tell us about what's going on the next day, Summit for Independent Politics.
That's right. Yeah. So this will be a several-hour gathering. I think it starts at 2:00, if I'm not mistaken,
2 to 6.
And it goes on till 6. And there will be a whole series of panels, focusing on key issues for the Los Angeles area, including, housing and how do we get to affordable housing, police violence and Black Lives Matter. I think one on the climate as well. But then there will also be appearances by the candidates. And
nice.
So there are 3 congressional candidates running in top 2 races.
Wow.
So these are races in which there is no even hypothetical possibility of spoiling the election or splitting the vote, which in my opinion is shall we say, not supported by the facts, even in in the worst case scenario.
Sure.
In the presidential race, for example, we know that most Green votes actually came from what voting bloc? Not from Democrats. They came from the non-voting bloc. And that's generally where third-party independent voters come from. They wouldn't be voting. You know, it's not like Hillary Clinton owned your vote. You know,
Right.
she doesn't own our votes. Donald Trump doesn't own our votes. Democrats and Republicans don't own our votes. And the largest voting bloc right now, you know, aside from non-voters, is, independents.
Yeah.
People who have really thrown in the towel on both of the corporate-sponsored parties that are bought and paid for by the big banks and the fossil fuel giants and the war profiteers.
Are you seeing that? So you're saying that, but are we seeing the results of that in the Green Party candidates, in their popularity, in their runs? Are we seeing the independent voters go? Because what I'm seeing, even with Democratic Party, like Danny Jaffer is a Dem candidate. He's also a Green endorsed, and I'm seeing a lot of that where the independents or where the progressives in the party, wherever they are coming together around the person, not the letter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think people have really lost faith and confidence in the political parties that are bought and paid for by big money.
Right.
Once you get out into the non-corporate parties, then, it's what should we say? It's a mixed bag. You know, many people in the Green Party call it a non-party because they're not like, they don't share the sort of the tribalism of political parties.
Right.
You know, but on the other hand, they really support the agenda.
There you go.
And I think even more than personalities, people really believe that we have to form long-term alliances in order to advance a non-corporate agenda, because we don't have the corporate money. All we have are the people and the power of, our vision and the things that we need. And that need, is growing more, urgent by the day. So
12 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, does that?
Yeah, exactly.
You would think the Green Party would be,
if even,
right.
And then,
Yeah.
it's not only, climate, it's also the nuclear weapons. And there too, it's not just a Donald Trump problem. And I want to just keep emphasizing that the, sort of the prevailing paradigm is that all our problems are from Donald Trump, and this is what we hear from so many of the establishment Democrats. They don't want to revisit what the real problems are here, because they too are sponsored by the same corporate money. So they don't want to go deep. They just want to blame Trump and kind of get the power back. But, it's like the Democratic establishment is always onto the right stuff until they have the power, and then they don't do it. Like, in California, anything when Obama came into office and had both houses of Congress. And what did he choose to do with that incredible mandate was bail out the banks, and so he lost.
He shot hoops too. He did. He looked really good as a president. That's the job for the establishment. You got to look good. I mean, Obama fooled a lot of people. Fooled me. Fooled my mom. I didn't wake up till Bernie, and then I watched mainstream media black out both you and Bernie. Right.
Yeah.
And black out the complete message, destroy it. And it's amazing where we're at today that we've been able to kind of push it through. And you're talking about introspection, and the Democratic Party has none of it at the top level. I'm seeing a lot of battles going on at the state level in Oregon, where that's what I'm dealing with is, we got a progressive majority here, but we have some people at the top that are still clutching onto the purse strings. Right. And that's.
And what I have to say, what worries me is that this isn't, this isn't our first rodeo here with the Democratic Party. This has really gone on. You can trace this all the way back, to the Second World War, when the microphone was basically shut off on Henry Wallace. And I hear my doggie.
I know what's going on over there.
He's playing with something over there. Come here.
Here, we're going to show everybody this. Well, you can give you all a treat. This is Aiden Hill. We're in Berkeley City Council. This is another event. you're going to on the 28th.
That's right.
You know?
And on the 28th, we'll have Laura Wells again and Aiden and some other local Green candidates. But the point that I wanted to make about the congressional candidates was that there's only, they're running in two-way races.
That's great.
So there's no need to shy away from what we really need.
Right.
And particularly in Rodolfo's race and Kenneth's race, where they are challenging establishment Democrats who are sponsored by corporate money. In both cases, they support the, expanded military. They support the expanded DHS. They support ICE. And their demographic, the communities are of color, and our candidates are of color. They're both Latinx in one case.
Right.
In the case of Rodolfo, and Kenneth is of Filipino. He's a first-generation Filipino. And they're both of very humble origins. They look like the community. They talk like the community. They've grown up in that community, and they serve the community and nobody else. They don't accept corporate money.
Right.
So, what's not to love about these candidates and what they represent? And whether they win or not, it's a win to stand up and be heard. Our vision and our democracy and our allegiance to, social justice is not served by silence. It's not served by just kind of caving into the Democratic machine, which is what the other candidates are about.
Right.
Rodolfo's opponent has been in office for 25 years, and she inherited the office from her father in turn.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a dynasty that needs to end, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
And what is that for? U.S. Rep, California's 40th congressional district, Rodolfo. So these are, these are winnable. This is what's nice. As you say, they're winnable races. We're not worrying about splitting votes, and I think you can get progressives. How has the response been? Are they getting media coverage? Are they?
No, they're not getting media coverage.
Of course not.
But they're getting great response door to door. In fact,
wonderful.
Rodolfo, he's actually a psychologist. He's a very what can I say, brilliant young man who's doing research on child development now, just really
awesome.
Brought himself up by his own bootstraps, but he's really good with numbers, and he's keeping track of the results of his canvassing. And 90% of the time when people hear about him and have a chance to actually learn about him, they change their vote. So,
all the time.
The issue is money. And the issue is coverage. It's all about getting the word out, which is why independent media like this is so critically important. You cannot have democracy without an educated electorate, and we're just seeing that lesson on steroids nowadays. That corporate media is so incredibly toxic. We just badly need more of what you're doing. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Well, that's a great spot to stop, because I see we have a question in the audience. Laura Liven, would you like to come on and address this question?
I would indeed. And this is a good question. Melissa, one of our faithful viewers, and she's in Vermont, by the way, she wonders if you might be planning to run for Congress. And she says that it seems that your best place to win and get great national exposure by putting forward bills to save our planet and our people.
This is a possibility, and thank you for the suggestion. Where I am right now is mostly trying to help other candidates, to sort of clone us, because that's what we need. And my hope is that we can help a lot of people break through. The California races are especially great because they're two-way. So, they are immune to the bogus spoiler accusations, which is a big deterrent to successful campaigns. In my view, it's a false charge. Spoiling is a false charge because green votes largely come from the non-voting bloc. They're not taken away from Hillary Clinton or from establishment Democrats. So I think it's a bogus accusation, but it's out there. And this is, regrettably a time when people are paralyzed by fear. Mm-hmm. So the California races are just so great. And, I'm not in California, unfortunately. So that's why I'm trying to help other candidates, particularly, these great candidates in California right now. But Congress, I agree with you. It's not an easy race to win because congressional districts are big. It's a hard place to break in. In many, I think there's a strong strategic argument for Greens to try to break in at the state level. Right.
Agreed.
That's probably where you get the biggest bang for your buck. Mm-hmm. And you can move on from there. And I would encourage most Green candidates to start in at that level, and because you can get out and canvass, right. And you can personally go door to door and have contact with a state rep size district. You don't need a lot of money. I saw a statistic on I think it was on PBS NewsHour tonight, in fact, that 80% of congressional races are won by the candidate with the most money. There's another statistic that you never see, which I'm sure it's just sort of like common sense, that you can't even get into the upper tier of candidates until you have a big pile of money. And you may not have the most money, but you still need, millions of dollars, and often it's tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to even compete at the congressional level. Sure. So it's crazy. The political system is extremely toxic, and we're headed for a crash landing in one form or another. And I would just say it's just really so important that everybody, own our democracy, and make it more small d democratic, and be engaged and participate to make our political system real, because it's going to get real one of these days, whether it's with the fascist takeover and we all need to be out in the street, or it's the breakdown, of, it's the staggering sea level rise, or the floods, or God knows what it is. But there are just so many ways that the system is on the verge of collapse right now. It could happen on many different fronts. It's really important for us to be developing our connections at the community level, and to be fighting for democracy, because in order to get all the other things that we urgently need, we have to have a democracy in order to do it.
We do. I'm going to jump in here, though. That was all good, but I'm going to pin you down a little bit, because it sounded like what you were saying is, I don't live in California, maybe yet. Running for Congress is a good idea in California because of the two-person system. By 2020, you could be in California. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, let's see. Most of my family's here on the East Coast. So.
All right. Well, I guess everybody's really hoping that you'll run for something, because like everybody else who's run, once you run for an office, you build the resources, you build the credibility, and now it's easier to run for the next thing. And you're an asset to to the Green Party and to everybody who wants to save humanity. So you really should run again.
Yeah. Well, I would say that she's an asset doing what she's doing now, though, as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Supporting the other candidates.
Though, so. And I very much believe, that we're all assets to each other, and we are more than the sum of our parts. And the critical challenge right now is for us to find ways without billions of dollars. It's easy if you have billions of dollars.
Sure.
But it's not possible to do the right thing, in my opinion, because you become accountable to, your corporate donors. So, it's kind of this paradox. We have to struggle to learn how, to sort of develop new ways of organization. And, the internet is one of them. Many of those internet tools are being deeply compromised in this new era of McCarthyism, which is censoring us, as you well know, in every dimension, whether it's legacy media or internet, or the loss of net neutrality, the proper not censorship of progressive left and anti-war sites, the new algorithms on social media, etc. But, you know, email can still be a very effective means of communication. So anyhow, I want to encourage people to please connect with me on social media, and you can, you know, probably the best way to do that is at Dr. Jill Stein. That's at Dr. no period Jill Stein.
Right there.
Through Facebook. Thank you. Yes, through Facebook and through Twitter in particular. Twitter is a little bit less encumbered these days, but
great.
You know, get in touch and let's stay in touch, because we're going to have to work together, I think, for the foreseeable future.
Yes, I agree. We absolutely are. You know, you were talking about, I just want to bounce back that we got a little bit more time here, and that was great. It was a great response. I want to talk about accountability, because it seems right now we've got a Democratic Party that doesn't want to look at itself, and we've got a surge of progressives trying to come in from all across the spectrum. We talked about media. When is media going to have some introspection? I mean, how do we deal with that? Do we have to put people in power first before we can make laws to control them again? Because we don't control this narrative. What can we do at a grassroots level?
Yeah, you know, I think we have to do more of what you're doing. You know, right now, I think we need grassroots, you know, community-based media. You know, it's like the big corporate media needs to be broken up. You know, we need antitrust laws. We need, you know, different rules of the game that make small community-based media the norm and not the rare exception, because corporate media has just become toxic to the core. And, you know, even like PBS, you know, is partly sponsored by the Koch brothers, and you see it in their programming. And they, you know, and the same is true even for National Public Radio. They're not covering either. No. It's all been really corporatized. And it's not only that it doesn't cover good stuff, but that the coverage itself is so skewed and
that's the big issue.
And poisonous, really. So I think, you know, there's sort of a silver lining here, which is that more and more people don't pay attention, especially, you know, young people. The media has lost credibility. The corporate media has lost credibility. So people aren't even watching it anymore. Yeah. The problem, though, you know, is that social media, too, is very corrupted, and whether it's sort of Cambridge Analytica type stuff going on in the background, you know, we don't have a really good handle on how social media is manipulated. There was a book that came out recently called Anti-Social Media, which is essentially an expose on social media and how it's essentially, you know, corporatized itself and is very much, you know, built on this sort of predatory sales model, wherein things that are sensational get lots of eyeballs and are inherently favored by the, you know, by social media's models, by Facebook and so on.
Sure.
And there's just a lot of very toxic stuff out there. Let me just give one really quick example. Sure. It's come to light recently that in this horrific, brutal murder by Saudi Arabia of Jamal Khashoggi.
Yeah, it's got a difficult name to pronounce.
Yes, a journalist who was something of a dissident, you know, but not a big time dissident. He was harassed systematically by on social media, probably by the monarchy, and, you know, who knows which parts of it. But the New York Times, I think it was the Times that covered this just last week, about the campaign against him, and the fact that it was administered by Saudis and assisted by U.S. corporations,
Right.
including McKinsey, I think, the financial services group. And it's an example. And yet Saudi Arabia itself is a sponsor of, what is it called? The Atlantic, which...
Oh, the Atlantic, the paper? Really?
Yes.
Ah, no idea.
Let's see. I may not have the full name, but Atlantic was part of it.
Oh, okay.
At any rate, the Atlantic it's like a think tank for NATO,
okay.
and it's sponsored in part by Saudi Arabia, also by NATO, etc. And it has partnered with Facebook in order to censor so-called fake news. And yet, Facebook's fake news censorship, so-called, is being sponsored by Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Or by organizations sponsored by Saudi Arabia, which itself is a sponsor of, online terror as well as, actual terrorism in the real world. So I guess the point I'm making is that there's much more going on than is widely understood on social media right now. And there's some very nefarious forces. And
I would, well, first of all, I think Yola agrees with you wholeheartely and probably needs some more.
Yeah.
And it's the Atlantic Council is what
the Atlantic Council. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's horrible what happened there, but it's, and what you're saying about social media, I think the saving grace there is that people get to choose more so what they look at. Yeah, there's censorship going on, but it's not a one-way pipeline of spun narrative coming out of a single network. So there's a little more there. The study just came out actually yesterday that showed that young people are better with facts and logic and information from social media than older people, and because the older people are tending to get their information from network television, which is more inaccurate, which is kind of hopeful for the social media. But I get what you're saying, because a lot of people, like my dad, will go onto Facebook and see something he doesn't understand or can't disseminate, and he is reading spun narrative as well. And I think the end of what you're trying to say there is we have to put these people in power. We have to put people in city council and in congressional seats all across the country, because they're the ones that eventually write the laws to put back the Fairness Doctrine, get rid of the Telecom Act, or at least rewrite it. Do you think that those things would help balance
Absolutely.
Media?
Yes. And in terms of Facebook and Twitter and social media, it's not like that has to remain a no man's land.
Right.
Rep. Ro Kahana, has been talking about an internet bill of rights.
Yes.
So that we have to protect privacy, but we also should be protecting freedom of speech, but also protecting people from, outright harassment and bullying. It's not an easy balance, and it requires people. You can't just do this with algorithms, which is how Facebook wants to do it. They
Right.
want to do it on the cheap. And it should not be done by corporations. Social media should be like the telephone. It really should be a public utility. It should be subject to public protections of our constitutional rights. This isn't rocket science, and again, this comes down to, I think, democracy. We need a democracy. We don't need representatives of corporations who are on the take from their corporate sponsors that got them elected, who are basically doing payback. We hear all the time this platitude about how, the parties need to compromise. Why are they not compromising? They're not compromising because they owe their positions to their corporate sponsors.
Yep.
So this is not a dialogue. This is not a human conversation. They've just become sort of cardboard cutouts representing their corporate sponsors. So this doesn't work. What we need to do is get money out of politics, of course, and that would go a long way to start solving this. And I guess what makes me hopeful is that there is an inevitable mobilization going on right now. And we know that 100 million people chose to sit out the last election. That is the largest voting block right there. Let me give you another little treat here.
That's all right. It's a great photobomb. This is tell you the ratings off the charts.
Okay, great.
This is awesome. It's better than the BBC one.
We'll show that corporate media what real news is about here.
Just on that, this is real. Okay, this isn't staged. Yeah. This isn't some narrative bullshit game that we're playing and paying you a bunch of money, and I'm not a six-figure freaking anchor who's paid to lie. I mean, this is real. We're real people, and we're trying to fix our democracy, and that's what makes this right. You know what I mean? So no worries.
Yeah, exactly. I know. It's like, let's get the corporate, poison out of, our media, our schools, our healthcare. It's like, it's sort of like a poison which has permeated society, and corporations have been protected with, corporations have rights that trump, no pun intended, which trump our human rights and our constitutional rights and so on. But the point I wanted to just finish there about, what's hopeful here is that most people are not being fooled right now.
Right.
The largest plurality of voters is not buying this toxic corporate political system, and those who want to blame and shame non-voters or third-party voters for rejecting a corrupt and brutal political system, they've got it wrong. So I just want to remind people, if you have trouble with our politics right now, the solution is not less democracy. The solution is more democracy, and that too is a pretty straightforward and simple fix. It's called ranked choice voting, or there are other forms, approval voting and so on. Take your pick. We should have a lot of experiments going on in other forms of voting. And the state of Maine led the way with a voter referendum that was overwhelmingly passed. The legislatures tried to stop it, and so the people of Maine passed it again in order to implement it. And they had one of the biggest historic turnouts in the last election. It also encourages collegial campaigning. It, it de-emphasizes negative campaigning because you're trying to get the second choice votes from your other fellow candidates and so on. So it's a win-win. And it also liberates our values, so we can bring our values back into the voting booth. How do you have a democracy if you're only voting against what you hate the most? It never provides guidance. It never gives a moral compass. Democracy has to be a vision forward, not just some horrible thing that you're avoiding. We never get closer to a just and sustainable or peaceful world that way. And, we've gone about as far as we can go. This is kind of a Hail Mary moment. We got to turn it around. But 100 million people get it. And they're saying no to this toxic system. The largest block of voters now is independent. And polls show it's now over 60% of, I'm just laughing at Yola in the picture there.
Okay. Yeah, I know. But you can't see her.
It's 60% of U.S. voters, and it's over 70% of millennials who are calling for a new independent political party.
Yeah.
So
there,
it's in our hands. We just, what's most critical is that we not allow ourselves to be intimidated or to be kind of like bludgeoned into voting against our values.
Right.
It's only our values that will save us.
Agreed. And I think we're starting to see that with early elections. We saw that in 2017. We've seen a lot of people win, a lot of progressives win in general, and it gives me hope. I just hope we don't run out of time. So we really are kind of on a short. We really got to get going. Would you and Yola come back again? I would love to talk to you more. It's like, it's running late here, and I don't want to keep you guys.
Yeah. Okay, great. I will. And let me just leave you with one final thought.
Absolutely.
And, kind of piggybacking on what you just said, this is kind of a Hail Mary moment right now. It's now or never. And it's really important, in my view, to forget the lesser evil and to fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because they do. We have the power when we stand up with the courage of our convictions and we connect across issues. The number of young people who have been, locked into predatory student loan debt, it's like going on 45 million. That's almost enough to win an election right there based on, bailing out students. So you put together the people who need a student bailout with immigrants, who care about their relations and their friends who are threatened with deportations, and that's about 25 million right there. People who need health care as a human right, that's, tens of millions right there. We've got a majority, not just a plurality, based on a progressive agenda. And, I think fight for ranked choice voting, liberate our votes. Don't be intimidated, because less democracy is not going to fix this. We need more democracy. And, you can vote strategically if you need to, but in my view, I could not bring myself to vote for a predator, period. So most independent third-party voters are not Democrats, they're non-voters. And if we can reach out and, hold hands and bring our fellow, brothers and sisters into this political process who are on the front lines, that's the liberation for us all. So we just got to do it.
Well said. And I see that. I mean, the three of us plus Bernie, by getting Trump elected, what he has done is unify everybody around issues instead of party, right? So we kind of did America a good thing there, I think, and in the long run,
Well, let me say, if you look at, to my mind, the notion that
Yolo agrees.
Yola's kind of crying.
I know. I told you, we're getting out of here. We're going to do we'll do another time, Yola, I promise.
One last thought.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that Green and independent voters would not have voted for Donald Trump. We know that from exit polls.
Absolutely.
The vast majority would have stayed home. So that didn't make the difference. What really made the difference was voters who were denied the right to vote, voter ID laws, the stripping of voter rolls, and in my view, the censorship of the political dialogue, which made people think that they had to pick between the two most disliked and untrusted candidates in our history. If we had gotten into the debates, it would have been a different ball game. So it's not from our asserting our values that the election was spoiled. The election was spoiled because it's a very toxic and corrupt system. There's so many things spoiling it. It was spoiled by big money. It was spoiled by, by CBS that gave all that airtime to Donald Trump.
Oh yeah, you don't have to defend that here. We voted for you. Remember? What is this? Do you see this? This is we're not CNN. We're not. But I put this is Marcus made this one. I love this because in the bottom right it says, "Do you still feel good about that Jill Stein protest vote?" Yes, I do. And it wasn't a protest vote. It was just my vote. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. You've been awesome. I really thank you for coming on. And I look forward to talking to you again. I really do.
Likewise. Great talking with you, John, and with you, Laura. Thank you both so much, and thanks to your viewers, and I look forward to more. Thanks for doing everything you're doing.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, and
it's amazing.
This has been awesome. Yeah, and again, I just want you to. I know you got to leave tomorrow. Thank you to everybody that donated. I saw a lot of donations, $5, $10. I think money bags, densities of $20. Thank you guys. I really appreciate that. That's what it takes to keep the lights on here, just like it does when you donate to the Green Party to help them put money into these down ballot candidates. And I suggest you do that. All right. We need to help everybody. Okay. We're going out with something pretty special. You guys know that we do with the music. Always got to do the music. Jill's busy. I didn't ask her to pick, but she did better than that. She actually did a song. I don't know if you guys know about this. It apparently caught a lot of crap in the past, but I think that's coming back. You know how tweets, there's like, did that tweet age well? This aged well, even though it was from the 90s. This was a song, Jill was in a duo called Somebody's Sister. And I don't remember the gentleman's name, Jill. Sorry, give him credit there.
Ken Seltzer, great musician.
Ken Seltzer, okay, it's fucking. And they did this a song called American Dream. We're going to go out with this song. It doesn't matter what you think of the 90s tune. Look at the words. Times are changing. It ain't a joke. Hey, revolution, take back your vote. Jill's been working on this for a hell of a lot longer than every burner. Right. And I just really appreciate what she's doing. And I say that to every progressive Dem, there's very little difference between you and the Green Party, and you should really vote for the person that's best to win the race, not the D. Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Jill Stein.
Thank you, John. Thanks, Laura.
Yeah. All right. I got to start the song. Here we go. Bye, everybody. We'll see you on Saturday. Saturday show.
Saturday show. Yay.
"25 million years ago, a new species appeared on Earth. The great apes. They were our distant ancestors. Through evolution, they gave rise to new...
So this is like a ad, because we're running this off YouTube. Sorry, everybody. I have no idea what this is. It is definitely not Jill's song from 1995. It's like a caveman show. I'm not sure what this is. Here, we'll skip it. This should be the song. There we go. That's a proper ending for this show.
Times are changing, it ain't a joke. Hey, revolution, take back your vote. Take back your vote, yeah. It don't matter what you say or do when you sense that the government ain't working for you. Every politician's got goods to pay into the hands of the company man, paying his way. Hey, American dream, going up in smoke. Time is Jefferson, your promises are broke. Times are changing, it ain't no joke. Hey, revolution, take back your vote. Take back your vote, yeah. Rip-offs, payoffs, pollution, payoffs. It's a crime in the street. Where's the car on